Hey everybody, on the road with Big Al here. I thought I'd do a video on my time when I worked for Werner. I worked for Werner from January of 2012, I believe, until December of 2014. For the most part, I enjoyed my time working for Werner. Really had no problems. It was a pretty good experience. I learned a lot working there. It was kind of the first main job I ever had going over the road, so I learned a lot. I applied to work there because there was a dedicated route that was pretty close to my home that I kind of wanted to get, so I applied for it. A recruiter called. I told him I'd like to get on that dedicated route, and he made the call, got me on the dedicated route. It was for a small department store, kind of in the Midwest. I delivered. It was the department store was about 40 miles from my home. 40 miles from my home, so pretty good. You deliver, come back, get another load, deliver, and then come back, and it would be like a small load, and you'd kind of be done for the week. For the most part, you deliver and deadhead back, which to me, I got paid by the mile, the same empty as I did loaded. So I kind of enjoyed that, kind of, picking up miles instead of sitting somewhere getting loaded. That was good. It was for a small department store, and their kind of business model was not to compete with Walmart, so they would build their stores in big enough towns, but too small that Walmart didn't want to come in to, wouldn't deal with. So delivering to all these places, you're delivering to a smaller town. It wasn't a big, metro. You never had to really deal with metropolitan areas trying to find a place to deliver. They also let us park in the parking lot, which was nice. Sometimes you'd get there at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'd just back up to the doors in the morning. They'd knock on my door, and I'd go in and open the doors and come back in and either get some more sleep or watch some TV, kind of dependent. They loaded the trucks from the floor to the ceiling, and they had to unload the trucks by hand. Normally there were two stops on the route, and it took about 2 hours to unload. They first stop, they never paid you, but any additional stop, I think at the time I got $15, and then right before I quit, they jumped that up to $20. Not bad. You just kind of sitting there for a couple hours unloading. Werner's a pretty big company. I didn't train through them or get my CDL through them. But, when I took my orientation, it was me and another guy. There was about 20 people in there. Me and another guy were the only qualified drivers out of the 20. And then there was one driver there that had previously worked for Werner. And he was it'd been less than 6 months, and he came back. So he didn't have to do any of the orientation. He went in and he took his drug test, and then he just went back to the hotel. But me and the other driver had to do all the go through all this orientation and do everything. And so we were with about 17 other guys that were there. That when they were done, they were going to go go with a trainer. We were going to get our own trucks and get on the road, which was kind of nice for me. But it kind of gives you an idea like how many new drivers they get in, and how compared to how many guys with experience that can just start working there. I personally think it's a pretty good play if you're a new driver and you want to go get some good training. They pay you to train. I think they go with the trainer for 6 to 8 weeks, and I can't remember at the time. It was something like $450 a week. They would pay you to train, which a good way to kind of get some experience. And I think you go to these you go to a CDL school, you get your CDL license, and then you hook up with a company like Werner, and then you go through that orientation, and then they'll train you for 6 to 8 weeks. You know, the trucking business is a good business if you're willing to work. Kind of takes a, like I've also heard like companies like Werner actually have like something like an 80% turnover rate, which is kind of understandable. You get all these new guys who've never done it before, kind of look at the pay. You get into it, and you see how, and I don't want to call trucking hard work, but it's like a lot of hours, and you're on the road, so you're not home. It kind of takes a kind of special person to do it. When I worked for Werner, their motto was "We care," and like during the orientation, they literally, like our instructor, she literally laughed about it, and I kind of was thinking the same thing. You know, these, like, you're not just a number here at Werner. You know, you're a person. But then she goes, "But here's your number." And when I worked for Werner, really there was only one person. There was really only one person I knew was the fleet manager, and because we worked out of where the dedicated route was out of, which wasn't, you know, there wasn't a terminal around there. Our fleet manager worked out of an office there, so, you know, we were never really around night terminal. You know, everything we did was in and out of where our dedicated route was based out of. So, like, really the only person like I knew was the fleet manager that worked out of there. But like, whenever you had to call in to Werner, you'd have to give him that number, and like, so I'm saying nobody really knew you. When I worked for night, it was a completely different deal. Like, you'd call into, like, I worked out of the Kansas City terminal. You'd call in, and you wouldn't have to give them your number or anything. They pretty much knew who you were. You know, everybody, like about 8 or 9 guys working in that office, and they took the time to kind of get to know you. But with that said, when I worked for Werner, whenever I was in Omaha one time getting my truck worked on, people came up and talked to me, asked me what I did, you know, and they told me who they were, and kind of like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, this is who I am, this is what I do." So the people at Werner and in Omaha too, it's like they kind of took the time to try to get to know the drivers. And I was told plenty of times, you know, like, you know, we have these big terminals. We have, like, you know, there's hundreds of people working out of that terminal, and you know, they tell you that, hey, you know, without the drivers, we don't have a job. You know, the drivers make everything go. This company, you know, it kind of is what it is. When I worked for Werner, I had 2 different fleet managers. The first fleet manager, it was the first time I ever was over the road and was using electronic logs, and kind of getting used to how to optimize your time on an electronic log takes a little bit of getting used to. And the first fleet manager, literally, he would it's like he would just go on the computer, and it'd be like, all right, it takes an hour and a half to drive here, it takes 2 hours to unload, and it's like he never would give you any extra time to, like, in case anything went wrong, like you ran into traffic, you have to pull over to go pee or get gas or fuel or anything. So it seemed like the entire time I was working for that first fleet manager, is just like you were always on the go. You had no spare time to waste, no extra time. And kind of the problem with that was, like, these stores. So, like, if, you know, he would, like, if you had multiple stops in a day, these stores, like, since they had to unload everything by hand, it's like you had a 10 o'clock appointment, and they hired people to come in at 10 o'clock to be there to unload the truck. And then, like, sometimes, like, so say he had a 4 o'clock, say one of the appointments was 4 o'clock, they wouldn't want to stay past 5, really much past 5, to unload the truck. So if you came in, the appointment was at 4 o'clock and you came in at 4:45, they wouldn't want to unload you that night. They would tell you that they would unload you the first thing in the morning. So, you know, like an entire day of this, if anything goes wrong, you know, and you got a 4 o'clock appointment, you're showing up at 4, you know, you're showing up at 4:45, and at that point they didn't want to unload you. That was kind of my biggest complaint about working for them. It's like they take these fleet managers that have never driven a truck, and they sit there on the computer, and the computer says, you know, oh, 90 miles, that should take an hour and a half to drive there. It's supposed to take 2 hours to unload. And then they give you 0 spare time. Everything had to go perfect. No, you know, no running into traffic, no car wrecks on the side of the road where you sit in traffic. You know, everything had to go perfect for everything to work out. When the new guy came in, he would kind of schedule stuff so everything wasn't like that. You had some spare time to change, to work with. I worked there for, it was almost 3 years. The reason I left was I was kind of wanting to change. I've been on the road for quite a while. I was kind of wanting to find a job where I was home more. And the company that I had the dedicated route with went bankrupt. So basically I had that in my mind, that I'm kind of ready to look for something else. And then the news came out they're going bankrupt, and it went about 3 or 4 months, and I just kind of wrote it out and worked with them until the very end. The last job I did for them was I moved trailers from the DC of the company to, because they had 50, 60 trailers in there, and they didn't have the dedicated route, so I just moved empty trailers. And my last day literally was Christmas Eve of, I think, 2014. Decided, went and worked for a local guy hauling ethanol and hauling diesel fuel and gas for him. It was a different experience. I never had done anything like that before. I might make a video on that. But, you know, like, for the most part, my time at Werner was pretty good. I enjoyed the dedicated route. I enjoyed doing that. Kind of when the dedicated route ended, I was wanting something different. I really didn't want to, like, try to get, like, where I live, there's not a lot of stuff. Like, there really isn't no other options. Like, okay, put me on this other dedicated route and I'll do that. It's really not that. It was either that or then just be like 100% kind of over the road. And at that point, like at that time, I was kind of wanting to be home, like be on the road and come home on the weekend. That dedicated route is like, normally you'd get home on Friday, you'd get Saturday off, so you'd get your 34-hour reset, and then Sunday you'd go pick up a loaded trailer, and then it was about 500-600 miles, and you deliver it to be there Monday morning, deliver the load, and then work till Friday, which it worked out pretty good, because like you literally work in Monday through Friday, you would get between 50 and 60 hours. I'd get about 24. Work 6 days a week. You work about 2,400 miles around there. If you wanted, like they had longer routes too. Like on Friday, you could come in, pick up your trailer. They would have 1,000-mile routes. You know, if you didn't want to come home Saturday, haul that 1,000-mile route, be there Monday morning, deliver it, and you know, you can make pretty good money if you wanted to work all 7 days a week. You know, for the most part, I'd say, you know, Werner's a pretty good company to work for. If you're a new driver, looking to get your CDL, you know, just got your CDL, need some training, I think they're a good company, you know, to get training through. Kind of though, another problem I had is it seemed like, I don't know, like when I worked for Werner, I had to turn in a truck. They were taking the truck off the fleet and they were going to sell it. So I brought the truck back to Omaha. They didn't have trucks in Omaha. I had to go to Springfield, Ohio. And another driver there was doing the same thing. And so they sent us both to Springfield, Ohio. They rented a van for us to drive from Springfield, Ohio. And that guy was a trainer. And so like on the way over there, I'm like kind of asking him and how long he'd driven, and he'd only been a driver for 5 months, and they'd made him a trainer, which I was like, I don't know, you'd think somebody would have to have at least a couple years experience before they let you start training. Like, you've only been driven for 5 months and you're already training other drivers to drive. Like kind of driving a semi, it's just like the entire thing is you're constantly learning. I've done this for 20 years and you still get better at doing stuff after, like, even after 20 years. Like I think I'm better at backing today than I was 2 years ago. You know, you just constantly, the more experience you get when you're on the road, you pick up things that, you know, I probably wouldn't have picked up 4 or 5 years ago. Just noticing, like, when you come up on traffic and it starts to slow down, I pick it up a little quicker than I did. You know, you start noticing the tail lights, or you kind of notice something up there before you, like, even people start hitting the tail lights. You kind of pick stuff up, you know, just, you know, doing this, you know, driving for 1 million, you know, being on the road for 1 million miles, you just start picking things up, and the more you know. And like, so a lot of stuff, like, you know, at 5 months in, at 5 months in, I probably still didn't feel comfortable. Like, when I went to a truck stop, like, if you got there late at night and it was dark and you had to back in between 2 other semis that were already parked, for the most part, I did not feel comfortable doing that. You know, like, I did not want to hit somebody else's truck. And, you know, so I don't think, you know, at 5 months in, I wouldn't have felt comfortable, you know, training somebody else to do stuff like that. But, you know, it's like, Werner was a good company to work with. It was a big company, so it was like, even though they said, we care, you're not just a person here, it was still big enough. It was a big enough company that it was still pretty much like impersonal. Like, I didn't know a lot of people there, like even other drivers, because you're in and out. I would run into drivers, you know, they'd have a break room and you'd run into them, but like, all the drivers are on their own schedule, so they're out while you're in, and you're out while they're in. So it's like, there may have been 1 or 2 guys that I kind of knew, but like, for the most part, I really didn't know anybody that worked there. Wouldn't really come across too many drivers. You'd see them at the terminal, may know their first name, but that was about it. But that's just kind of the way it is when you're working for, you know, a company like that. But, you know, I really had no problem. They're a good company. If I was to do it again, I'd have no problem going back to work for them. I'm on my own. I don't want to work for anybody else anymore. I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy booking my own loads. I have 100% control of where I'm going, how I'm going to do it. I can book loads. Like, I know what I want to do. I can book loads, like on a Friday. I can book a load that comes straight through my home. I can sit there for a day, go take a shower, get up, drive through the night, and deliver it Monday morning. You know, when you have somebody else dispatching that, they don't know where you live. They don't know any of this. You really can't set stuff up like that. When you're doing it all yourself, it's just so much better. But, you know, driving for Werner, and then I drove for night I'll do a video on kind of my experience with Night too. I got the experience to be able to do what I'm doing today. You know, I couldn't have without, you know, about 3 years with Werner and about 3 years with Night, 6 years of doing that. I was able to, you know, buy my truck and do what I do today. You know, without that experience, I wouldn't have been able to be able to make that transition. Like, you know, things are going good. Enjoy my past experience with both those companies. If I had to do it again with either one of them, I would do it again. You know, young, looking for experience, they're a good company to work with. That's kind of my thoughts. You know, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Thanks a lot.